Good evening, Wendy. Good evening, Michael. Can you hear me okay? Is everything good to go? I'll leave it to you to tell me. I hope everybody's having a good time. Carl, good evening to you, sir. Those of you to join us. All good. Good, thanks. Good, excellent. I'm glad you can hear me. That's that out the way, and we're good to go. Another hot day, which is good. Lovely. Although I do understand we're going to get a bit of rain now over the weekend. So, mate, hey, while the sun shines. Good evening to you, Derek. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And, yeah, it's all good. I'm glad you can hear me. A bit of a wobble on. Don't know why that's causing that. Let's just straighten this up. Maybe something to do with it. Never mind. Okay, we'll work with that. So we are 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's good. All right. Well, hopefully a few more will join us before we get going. Just wetting a couple of brushes up. Right. Well, it's 7 o'clock, so hopefully people will be joining in a little bit faster. Everyone knows the time. Jim, good evening from America. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. I hope you're well. I hope this evening is, well, it's morning for you or early afternoon. I hope everything's good where you are in your neck of the woods. Keeping safe, I hope, with all this COVID stuff going on. Make sure I've got a pen that works. Oh, looks like it's busted. Oh dear. 2 down, 1 to go. Okay, we're good, I think, on that one. Right, so tonight we are going to be doing a hill stream in watercolour. And hopefully you're going to get something from it, I'm sure. I'm certainly looking forward to doing it, actually, because there's a lot of situations going on here with what I call yin-yang, the sort of complementaries of warms and cools going on. So hopefully I can bring that off in this watercolour. There's a little bit of white space, a little bit of white water. I've got to try and protect that if I can down in here. We shall see how we go. We are 8 up. Okay, I know there's some more people coming, so we'll give it another couple of minutes if that's okay, but my clock seems to have halted. Oh no, it's not. It is only 2 minutes past 7, so we're okay. We are in good shape, although I've been going 5 minutes. I've already seen somebody off. Never mind. There you go. Right, let's get rid of that out of the way and let's get started, I think. So, as I was saying, we're going to be doing a hill stream this evening, and it's covering the whole page, so we've got quite a bit of room to play around with in here to get this thing done, and hopefully it will be everything we need it to be. We've got a nice little waterfall. I say a waterfall, it's only about 8 inches deep, even if that's probably only 6 inches or more. So it's not hardly a waterfall, but it's certainly giving a little bit of white water there just to break up the whole scene. So we want to get that in across there. it doesn't matter if we make it quite wide and quite different to this, because this stream is changing as it articulates all the way down the side of the hill. It's in a place that's near me, and Ben, good evening to you, sir. So yeah, right, well, let's get underway. So what I'm going to start doing is just sketching in some of the little salient points. We've got several bumps in the bank, and I want to give this, now this area here, which is quite interesting. When I said this little area here on the waterfall, it actually is a good third or more up the paper before we even get to all of this down here, and yet it looks quite low. So, and let's just put a very faint line in just to suggest where that might be for the moment, and we will then start adding in some of our further detail. I'm going to put the top in, which is up here somewhere. The trick about this one is to make it look as though it's going away and not sort of curving up in the hill. And there's very little bank that we can see on this side. We're going to put a little bit in, and then it sort of goes away from us, so it's sort of in and back out again, and then we only see it again back in the foreground here. Anything else we see is overgrown. I think they're wild, blackberries, blackberries, I think it is, the prickly horrible things. So they're all growing through here, so we'll put those in later. Good, thanks very much, Ben, I appreciate that. We're going to look at this part up here now, and there's one or two rocks which I want to put in the distance, and we're going to put in just one or two little taps, nothing serious. I don't want to do too much drawing really in this. Well, there's going to be some, but I don't want to do too much. I want to break up some of the edges, and I want to put some of these little rocks in as we cascade down the river. So I'm putting these small shapes in to remind myself that they're there, and we need to put those in. Scale is quite important too, to get these scales about right. Mark, good evening to you, sir. Thanks for joining in. And there's a big bump in the water here, so I'm going to put that in, and that goes up over out the way like so, something like that, which will be good. Lucy, good evening. Thank you very much from Rochester. Nice to have you with us. Thank you very much. So incidentally, Lucy, where did you pick my stream up from? Was it one of my what are they, Facebook thingies, or was it something else, or you just happened to turn on and there I was? Just interesting to know. It's nice to know where people pick up the stream from. So I'm going to put this through here. Might change the angles and leave one or two areas. There's a bit in the middle that's coming forward, and then a rock there. I'm going to put that in. Jean, good evening to you from California, and Katrina, thank you very much for joining us. James, good evening to you, sir, and glad you make it. Sorry I missed you today and you weren't able to pop in. You should have given me a call, let me know, because I was actually in the gallery. You could have come into the gallery and said hello. You'd have probably even come when Wendy was there. Wendy was in the gallery earlier on. So anyway, yes, so more rocks, little bits and pieces going on here. I'm almost tempted. I want to take this up a little bit further. I feel like I'm running out of room here, you know. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually change my mind to where this comes through. And I'm going to suggest that we put it up a little higher. Somewhere about here, maybe, just to give me a bit more room. So we've got that little curvature where the water's coming down early, and then it goes into this little rock. And there's a nice little top of the rock, little facet to the rock there. Okay, Lucy, that's cool. But thank you very much. I appreciate you following me, even if it is secretly. That's cool. Yeah, that threw me. Alright, so I'm going to carry on with these rocks and build them off to the side. And just little taps. I'm not doing much drawing, it's got to be said. I'm making shapes and little taps with a pencil. I've got to make this one come up enough to hide the water behind it, and then they come up and away into the bank on this side. And I've walked this stream many times, and the dogs have run through it many times, and my son Barnaby has played in here as a kid, as well as still going back there and doing his photography and his filmmaking. So it's all really, it's a lovely place. And I'm going to take that right the way through there for the moment, build that up. It was actually along this stream a few years ago, probably about 6 or 7 years ago now, if I remember correctly. There was a very rare sighting of a Indian pond heron, or a squacco heron. They never actually got to the bottom of what it was. And it had first appeared in the gardens, mine and one of my neighbours, and one person down the road spotted this thing one morning, fishing in our ponds, as it were, and it was like a small American night heron, but much paler, more, I don't want to say beautiful because both birds are beautiful, but it was just wonderful to see. And I sort of took some photos of it, and the word got around. And at the bottom of this hill stream there is a small but quaint little old bungalow estate, probably built in the 60s, 70s, something of that nature, I think. And these waters sort of end up in a pond at the bottom, and I don't know how, I've never actually been to that part of it, but this thing was set up home there, and it was flying out in the morning and visiting all the homes it could to do a bit of fishing for lunch. And yeah, so it visited all of ours, and sadly it was found predated upon some weeks later. It was really big shame, but I don't know if they took the feather and got an analysis done, a DNA done, to see what it was. But whether it was an Indian pond heron or a squacco heron, it matters not. No, I didn't fish it. It wasn't that sort of stream, Carl. It's just a trickly, meandering stream. I've not known any fish in it, and I don't think it's the sort of stream that would contain that many fish varieties or species. Yeah, so this bird, whatever it was, whatever species it was actually the first one ever outside of the southern hemisphere. So it was quite, I mean, you can imagine this poor housing estate with its bungalows and the predominantly elderly residents in this just being absolutely crammed with cars parked everywhere, people paying people money to give them first knowledge and a quick phone call. Please, we'll pay you this, give us that, tell us it's there, we'll come down straight away and we'll see it and spot it. It was chaos there, apparently. And yeah, well, there you go, that's just a story, but it did actually happen, and I've got the photographs in my collection of this thing in my garden, fishing and sitting on my fence and fishing on the edge of the pond. It was quite a beautiful bird, but sadly it didn't make it back home. There was talk, was it an escapee, but there was no record version of any birds being kept of that nature in captivity in the country. So I don't know. We don't know. I don't think you'll ever know. It's one of those, isn't it? You're just never going to find out. I'm going to put that piece of wood in there. I quite like that. It's a nice little accent sort of sticking out of the water. Got rammed in there as it's come down the waters and sort of got itself wedged in behind a rock. So I'm going to stick that in, and that comes right across here and just touches into that one there. There could be a bit more gap between these two areas, but we'll live with that. It's okay, not a problem. Just let it finish off there somewhere. Nice little bit of stick, and that's got itself pinned, as I say, into something there, and the water's cascading. Now this is the thing, this is the area I've got to protect, is all this bit of white water around here. I'm going to put a few taps in, so as I come down with a wash, I know where I'm at. Sylvia, hi, thanks for joining us. It would make a good oil painting, Jean. We'll take it. as a census at the end, if this turns out okay, if people want to see the same stream done as an oil on Monday or Tuesday next week, we're happy to do that. Or I did promise we would do an oil of a Thames barge, so maybe I should do that, and then a week later we'll revisit this subject again. But it depends on what people really want and what they want to do. So we'll take a little poll and get an idea of what people want. But I don't mind. It's fun doing it. I love doing this sort of scene. I've done this similar one as a watercolour before, not this particular one. It's a little bit more complicated in some ways. You've got to get this angle about right up through here, and all the reflections and stuff. Certainly on this paint, this sort of, I don't know quite what that is, but reedy thing. I think they're flag irises. I'm not sure. I'm sure somebody out there will tell me, and I'm going to make this one substantially larger to occupy quite a big area in here, and it also gives the whole of this bank some scale. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to take the bank off out of sight on that side there. Just anything that I've missed. Bexhill, wish I had popped in now. Those road works through High Through were terrible. Had a lovely day out with my daughter in Dover Castle. Yeah, well, yeah, those roadworks are there for another 3 months, I understand, and they're just adding another few feet to the cycle path that goes nowhere. That's politics for you. Let's use the government money up, because the government don't need it. So let's put a cycle path that we need to go all the way through, but let's just add another few hundred yards to it. It still stops somewhere in nowhere. People still got to stop, get off, go onto the main road and cross the traffic. I'm getting very biased and political. I want this cycle path to go all the way through to Hythe from Dymchurch. At the moment it's doing about a mile now, and that's the end of it. It's crazy. Anyway, enough before I get arrested for my political bias. Let's get some water going. Let's get a wash going, and I'm going to put a bit of a green wash, bit of a warm wash coming down through the water, and try and protect some of the white areas. Even if they go, there's no actual big white areas actually, so I could get away with a quite a pale blue wash all the way through this area, and I could come back in with a little bit of gouache on other areas if I feel I need to. Really? No, seriously? Are you telling me there's a 7-minute lag? Surely not. Okay, Ben, I am going to say the word, your name. I'm going to say your name, and you tell me when you hear it. I'm going to say your name followed by my name. So when I say that, you tell me. That give me some idea of how long this delay on this lag is. So I'm going to say Ben Paul. Now you tell me when you hear that. And I'm putting the clock on. It's oh, I do hope it's not as long as you suggest it is. In the meantime, I'm going to carry on with this wash. And for that, I'm going to put in a little bit of blue. I'm going to start pre-mixing some colours ahead of time. So I've got these. I'm looking at the chat to see when Ben turns around and says he heard that. I do hope so. I'm going to use some other blue. I'm going to use some ultramarine blue here too. I think my blues have got a little bit dirty from my last painting, so I'm just going to give them a clean. Let's come in with some pure ultramarine. That's much better. A little bit of blue over there. Leave that, and we'll come in with some warm colours. And I want to put in some raw sienna. I must keep my colours a little clean. I've got to be said. Make enough of that to come down, and maybe some burnt sienna in there too. Okay, much better. Oh, okay, right. So, yeah. All right. Oh dear. You keep chatting. I'll keep painting. We'll get there in the end. Alrighty. So I'm going to just come in with a little bit of white, bit of blue coming down into this, and then I'm going to suddenly change that through to the raw sienna, and as it comes down the page I'm going to come drop in a little bit of burnt sienna to that. Carl, hi, you can hear me, that's the main thing. And I'm going to leave some paper to hop, skip and jump it. And I want to get some green going. I'm going to use some cooler greens. I use a bit of cobalt teal, a little bit of the raw sienna, just to give that a greenish sweep across the back there. Let that come down in the wash like so. I'm not saying I'll start that bit again. I am not worried about the two colours mingling and clashing together. That's not a problem at all. I'm just adding some colours in. I will come in with a little bit brighter green as it comes down, like so. Right. Okay, well, we'll have to live with the lag, I'm afraid, people. Whatever. I can't, as Ben says, not a lot I can do about it. So I'm going to carry on, and I will answer your chat questions as often as I see them. And so, yeah, if I don't see one, I do apologise. I bring that all the way down through here and let that just go off. And you can see that there is some cools. I'm going to pop a couple of cools in there, but I want to come back more with the browns and the lovely sienna colours through here, and let that mix into there and let it come down. I'm going to come into some blue, and for that I'm going to use a bit of cerulean blue just in there, and then let that come into that, and literally just do not a lot more really. I'm going to leave a bit of white along the top of the waterline, so I'm going to preserve a little bit of white space in there, and then I'm going to come with some blues. I'm going to come back in. Let's clean that out, clean the brush out. Let's come in with some lovely ultramarine blue for the time being. I don't want it too strong like that. I'm going to wash that through. Let that come all the way through and get quite pale. In fact, what I can do to preserve my whites, I will let it stain paper like so, and then just tap it off and let that just settle down. Again, in there, there's a little bit of staining. Let's leave that and leave that white, and then we can come more with some blues coming down into here. Quite dry. I'm allowing the brush to skip around through this area like so, and then we want some lovely warms coming in through on the side of this bank here. We're going to let that all set up in a minute and let that dry out before we carry on. Just one or two taps out on some of these stones, so some stay light, some get darker, and I'm not too worried. That's just playing around with what's there. We're going to put a lot more work into making these colours how we want them. I'm going to come in with some blue to finish down through here like so, but I want some browns too, just making their presence felt through here. So you've got a bit of a yin-yang mishmash of blues and warms, as you can see in the rippling of the water. There's a lot of warm on this side, so let's come back in with a bit more of both those colours. More of the raw sienna than the other. Let's just bring that in. That's a bit strong, but we can put a lot of water to that and take that up into this area, take it all the way across into there, and let that come down into this area. And don't worry if we put what we think is the wrong colour in. We're not, because we can go over this anyway, so it's not a big deal. Just going to tap off the edge of that, keep that a little fresher. Okay, that's not so bad. Just want to tease a bit of that out with a dry towel. Don't lift it all out, just want to lift some out so that you get this sort of marking. It could be the riverbed because it is very, very shallow here. I mean, none of this is much more than an inch or two deep. I can't recall it ever being very, very deep. I'm quite happy at leaving that for the moment, and we'll come back in with some other colours. So in my normal way, mute hairdryer. That's quite a lag. I've just lost all my paper. Oh, what a dope. Okay, I just saw Chris Catriana. What paper do I use? Yes, good question. And I should have said, sorry. I use, predominantly I use Arches or Saunders Waterford. I tend to go for 300 pound in weight, which is 640 GSM. And I like to bounce between rough and hot press, so the very smooth against the very rough. And I do use not the in-betweeny, as it were, but I prefer to use rough or the smooth. But always, if I can, 300 pounds in weight. It just gives you an awful lot more working time. The paper, when you want it to stay moist, will stay moist or damp. We're pretty dry on this to continue on. So let's carry on. Right. Sorry about the little messages popping in over the top of that with their little pings and what have you. And a little glug. Brownlee, sorry I didn't see you sneaking in there, sir. Good evening. Not a problem. Glad you joined us. Okay, so let's carry on and let's see where we're going. I'm going to put in a little bit more green and a little bit of shadowing. So I'm going to actually add these two greens together and come in with a little bit of shadowing across these grasses, just softly, not too much. I just want to suggest them. And there's a lot of shadow in down through here. And this is going to be superseded or overlaid with other values of green that dictate into these shrubs or these flag irises that are growing in their tufts, as it were. But I want to give a sense of the bank coming down and into the edge of the water here, and there's a little bit of dark obviously as this comes down into the edge of the stream, and it gets quite light up through the back there, but I just want to suggest a little bit more than maybe the photograph is showing us. And yeah, I mean, if the photograph isn't quite doing what you want it to, then of course you do have the ability to alter something just to meet your needs, and that's not a big deal. Some people think that they have to work very, very slavishly to an image and be absolutely totally faithful to every part of it. And even in times gone by, artists that were out in the field painting would often move things. There is a story, I don't know how true it is, but Munnings painted some boats on a river which he loved, and pretty much every time he painted these boats they weren't in the right place, so he would move them to where he wanted them or put the objects that he wanted behind them. Now, I don't know if that's a true story, but I can understand it happening even if it's not true. And I think that we do have the ability to take something out of a scene, put something in a scene, add people into it as they walk up and past us. All these little bits and pieces can be added, subtracted and moved. I think that Constable's Billy, whatever his name is, house in the painting, I think I'm right in saying, I can be corrected, quite happy to be corrected, but I think someone is saying that it can't actually physically exist in the painting in the way that it was painted. You can't actually see it in that guise. So I think it was conveniently moved to a position that made the composition in Constable's paintings acceptable. So there you are. Anyway, that's only as I understand it. I'm not 100% sure on that fact. So please don't go off quoting that chapter and verse. I would hate it if it was wrong and you got it and you looked a bit silly for it. But it's worth checking out. I'm sure it's a fact that can be checked or not checked accordingly. I'm going to come in with a bit of lighter green, more acidic green, just to tap in one or two edges here. It's a bit damp. That's fine. I've got no problem with that. I want it a little bit cooler than that. So I'm going to come back in with a lot of blue in there. Just take that out and make that even cooler. Much more blue in there than I had. And that's going to be the edges of my grasses on the mud. And just gives me that extra little bit of kick of darkness before I come up into these here. Just going to suggest them. That's all I'm going to do for the moment. There's going to be a lot more work done on them yet. I don't want to go too mad to start with. Come back in with some of these colours and on the edge of the bank. Quite bluish in the colour. Add a little bit more yellow maybe just to take it to the green. But I do like this dark in here. And of course we've got an awful lot of dark down in here, which I'm just going to quite liberally put in at this point. Like that. Okay. Tap a little bit off, give me a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to the other side, but that's not a big deal. Alright. It is ever so warm tonight. I don't know why that suddenly it was quite cold and now it's very, very warm. Okay, I've got to start working into some of this water. And I'm looking at my shapes back up here and what I've got. I want to put in a bit of pure blue. I'm going to come in with a bit of water, a little bit of ultramarine, just going to put in a little bit across the top there. Nothing serious, just a little bit, and let that set up and settle down. That gives me that extra bit that I was looking for. And then I'm going to come in with some of the green edges to these rocks in here. And all the other different rocks and forms. I come in with some warms, a bit of blue, a bit of dark. I don't want to get it too much and I don't really want any hard edges. So as I put a colour in, I'm going to just soften off with a damp brush, take that to the edge so that we can lose that into the bank and just search for areas that we can lose it where we want our lights and we want our darks. I want it very, very soft coming through, working through the scene. So I'm going to come in with a little bit more of a strength of the raw sienna as it comes down. That comes across that rock. In fact, that rock could possibly have been a little lower down. I'm not worried, I'm not going to change it now. It will stay as is. Let that dry out. That's quite nice. Right there, and it's dark enough to allow me to put in some gouache later if I feel the need. There's a little bit of chop of water. I might even, while I've got that paper, just take that out like so. That might work. That looks like a little bit of bubbling of water back there, and we can come back the other side of it and close that back down again and give that a little bit of dark underneath that rock. I'm using a lot of dry paper technique, well, dry, it's damp paper now, but it's certainly good to do that just to pick some of the pigment back up and almost blot some areas just to liven up the area and give yourself a chance. But I think it's quite works. I think it works quite nicely. Right, A lot of ums. I do apologise. My son has been telling me off. My son has been revamping not just this area in here, but my my filming in my train room too, for Sandling Junction videos. So he's been doing an awful lot of change of lighting and other bits and pieces that will help me very much moving forward. But it comes as a cost, because at every juncture he has been telling me off, and one of the biggest things he has been telling me off for is I go I don't know how many times I do it, so many times. And he's made me very aware of it, but it is what it is. But the next video that you see on Sunday for Sandling Junction will have some information relating to what we've been doing, and also, dare I say it, the ums. So watch out for that on Sunday, and we'll see how that goes. Right, I'm looking at this now, and I am coming across with a bit of a blue shadow through here. There's quite a bit of shadowing underneath the bank here, which I'm just going to put that in, so we get an edge to the water. And I want to put in a bit of dark and a bit of browns into some of that too. Okay, take that out there. Yes, don't rub it in, Jim. He has been telling me off a lot for it. It's amazing, you know. I edited, I'm doing it again, but I edited a film last week for Sandling, and I think when it comes to doing the ums bit right at the end there, I edited out over 1.5 minutes worth of ums. Crazy. It's amazing. But there you go. I do apologise for that. Right, okay, I digress. I need to think a little bit about what's going on here. Got a bit of dark coming in under this one, and there are some changes that I want to sort of try and secure it and leave. So I'm going to clean that out, come across with some lovely sienna, and I'm going to add some orange into that, some lovely transparent orange, just to make it a bit richer. I want to bring 1 or 2 areas across into this quite wet, take it to the edge, quite wet, stronger in colour, and then I want to let that phase in. It's got to dry up. You can hear me scraping my finger across the paper very gently, I've got to say. I've missed a great big, no, it's there. It should be over there, not there. Never mind, I've moved a rock, but it doesn't make a big deal of difference. I just want to suggest some of the water that's coming through here and let that dry before we continue. It just gives a little richness to this part. Let that take away through there and blend away. That will be lost in the rocks. I'm not overly concerned about that. Just going to protect a bit of it. This has got to be treated more as well, so I'm going to put some more while we've got this in this lovely yellow. Take that all the way through. Don't worry about the darks in there, they can be added later. Let's just come in with a bit of a stronger pitch of colour into here. Come round this rock if you can. Preserve the lightness of the rock and all these bigger rocks. If we can preserve the tops of them at this point, that would be awesome. That would be great. So let's just come across. We're going to mix these blues and that up one more time. Take that splash out. Mix some of these up with each other yet again, so that we get this play around with the lights and the darks in the water. I come in with a little bit of cobalt blue this time. As this comes away, that's way too strong, but we can diffuse the issue. Let's take that across. We can blot it away like so. We can suppress how much is left. And we can come back in with some water if we're still unsure. I don't think that's too much of a problem. Actually, it looks quite churny, and quite happy with that and the way it worked out. So one of those happy little accidents, as it were. Bring some of those in through here. Underneath this rock it gets a bit blue again. We can put some of that in, like so. And leave some of these stones here light if you can get away with it. And we can come back in with other colours later on. It's not a big deal. There we are. And that will take that all the way to the edge on here. And I really have now got to wait and be patient with that before I carry on painting any of that area, certainly. But we're just building up. That was our second layer pretty much done. And once we come back, once this is dry, then we'll start building up for more detail. It doesn't look too much like a stream at the moment though. Right, alrighty. Now I've got two lovely brushes here. Very, very similar, and this one is a third. These two are sword liners. These are swords. They have a very, very elongated point to them, and when they're wetted up, they are very, very floppy, and you can see the sort of movement that this brush will give you. So it can be really ideal for branches and flicks of plants and bits and pieces if you want to later on. Now there's a lot of reedy stuff in here that I haven't allowed for. I can go back in with those with gouache later. This is very similar to this, just that this one is squirrel, this one is a man-made fibre. And there's not a lot to tell between the two. You can see that they are both sort of floppy. This one's got a little less flop to it than this one. This one is, being squirrel hair, it hasn't got the strength in the fibres of the hair to hold the shape without being pushed around like that. And you can see that even with a great big brush like this one, where it sort of just moves around and can be manipulated very, very easily. This is a man-made fibre, and it does have a little bit more strength to hold the shape. This one is the same as this one pretty much. This one is part man-made and part sable, and it does have a shorter. This is an angle or dagger brush. You can see that the shape is clearly different from the two. This is giving a very similar mark, but obviously a little bit more control what happens at this end. So they're great ones to have. Yes, Jim, you're going to get a 3-match band in a minute. Gotta say. Right, let's come in and let's just start looking at some of the lighter greens that I need to. One thing about trying to mix colour with a sword is not happening. You need to probably put it in with another brush, because this sword does not like being pushed around in anything like that. So I'm just going to put in some lighter greens that are not clearly in evidence, got to be said, but I'm going to put a few in anyway, and then we'll come over with a whole lot more darker ones. But these are going to be our flag irises. That's what I'm trying to think of. And I'm going to put in a few other darks, darker than this, but I'm just going to put in a sense of form. Now, do I like that? I'm not too sure. I don't think I'm not that keen on that, so I'm just going to take some of that back out, and we'll come back in the top end in a minute. But I'm going to put in, I said I was going to put in an awful lot of stuff in here, very wet. And as I say, you slosh out a sword liner into your palette or your water, and it just, especially if it's an animal hair, it just soaks up the water like that. And so anyway, I digress. Let's just come back in and let's just put these tops and tips of the flags in, take a lot of that out, and you can see how I can scratch around with this thing and it will drop and deposit paint in very unusual places, and often not quite where you plan on it being, but it really can work out. Don't want to do any more than that. I just want to set them up for later on. Luke, you are very late. I hope you have a very worthy excuse for being so late, young man. I'm going to go back to the angle brush now and show you that one working. And let's have a little bit more blue into some of that green. And let's just come back in and see you've got a bit more control with the tip, but you also, when you want it, you can come back in and put a broad mark in like so, and that's the beauty with this. And it's the same using this brush whether you're using watercolor or oil. It has the ability to be used at the tip, as it were, like so, or much stronger broad marks like so. You can get away with an awful lot with it, and it is a really great brush to use. Alright, so that's my plug done for rosemary brushes and this particular shape of brush. Although I don't actually think I actually mentioned rosemary until then. But these are all rosemary brushes. She does a stonking job, and yeah, I just love what she does with them. And she is a company trained brush maker by one of the well-known brands, but she then decided to create her own cottage industry. Oh, look at that lovely phthalo green. How strong a user. Let's temper you down a little bit, take you back out of the too much heaviness. Yes, so she started off her own company, and her brushes now are marvelled the world over by many artists, and I'm privileged to be one of those that use her, know her, and yeah, it's just great. Anyway, I'm just putting in a few soft marks to start creating a few shapes within these flags. And all I'm doing is just flicking around. I'm using the edge of this brush. And if you treat these brushes well, they will last you many, many years. And it will only sort of stop working when if you give it just too much. But at the same time, if you do look after it, it's the tip. If you keep the tip, this will serve you well for a long, long time. Anyway, leave that there for a moment because I want to drop in some colour up the back here, just in here. Just got a little bit lost, and as it's dried, it's disappeared. So I want to put that in there. A little bit more lemon into some of it as that goes away into the distance. And there's going to be more lemons in here. I think this just needs to be, even if I, at the risk of losing some of these fronds, I really want to put in some more green in there and play around with some of these marks. That goes off like so. I can always come back over with the shadowy greens. That's not a big problem at all. A lot of bit of cool green going over here as well. I'm going to use some of that coming into there. I think almost certainly I will have to reinstate some of those shadow marks further on because I've pretty much eliminated them. And come across here and create and form that bank like that. Okay, Jim, no problem. No problem. Right. Now let's get back to this water while that's drying up, and hopefully that won't dry in any awkward manner. So I'm carrying on using these brushes, and I'm doing something I tell everyone not to do, and that's leave a brush in water. Please don't do that. You'll ruin the shape of a lovely brush very, very quickly if you leave it pushing in water, because it will lose its shape. It can't cope with it. Right, let's come over with some more of our siennas, and let's just come in and look at some of our shapes through here. Now I can use the edge. I've shown you a broad shape. I've shown you the tip. Now I'm using the very, very sharp edge that this type of brush creates to give my lines, give me some linear aspect to the water as it's coming down. So one or two shapes like so allow me to muck about with what you're seeing. Oh, I didn't really want to pick up too much of that green. Not at this stage. There is some green in the water, but not too much. I'll bring that out. Just take that across. Like so. Let's go back up to the top and let's put some indigo into our oranges, a favourite colour combo, as you well know. And I'm just going to start tapping in a few dark areas up here, which are sort of shaded areas, bits of rock coming into the water, like that. Just very loose, almost like a shorthand. It's almost like writing. You're not writing, but it's just like that. Creating some shadows to stop people. I'm going to make them a little bluer, cool them down a bit as they're at that sort of distance, and just take them off into the sort of scrub that's on the side here. I'm going to do that, which suggests that there is some scrub, and I will play around with that into there, like that, and come back in with some more definite darks into here, like that. Soften a couple of these edges, so dampen the brush and just literally take it along the edges you wish to soften. Don't have to do all of it, just some of it is good enough. Well, I use the sword liner because, again, you can make a very fluid oil solution. You can use a lot of zest it or medium, whichever medium you gravitate to, whether it's a zest it and linseed, or whether it's a fine distilled turpentine with cold pressed linseed oil. It doesn't matter which way you do it, but at the same time you can use a very soft, a very sort of creamy solution, pick some up, and you can start flicking it around for branches and all sorts of things. A lot of use for it, Ben. It does work. Right, let's carry on. I want to put some darks into our thing. I'm going to come in there with some more indigo and more of the orange and more indigo. So I want it quite dark up there, one or two places, and just looking at the edge of the rock like so. And we're going to let that dry, but I'm going to just tap in some paint just to let that drift into the background there and create more information. There's a lot more darks in here which I need to do over the top of this rock like so, and create little drawings of rocks that, if you remember how you had them. So let's just draw one or two shapes in that suggest the shadow forms of rocks that are back up here somewhere like so. Okay, we're going to add to that, but let's come down a little way and let's come with some more blue into that mix now. Let's look at this rock here that's in shadow, and let's put that in. Actually, I'm going to use a smaller round brush for some of this as well. That is a lovely small, lovely round brush. That one. Let's come in with a different one. Let's come in with this one. It's a medium round brush, about a number 8, 10, something like that. Not quite sure what size that is. But I'm just going to come in with a bit of shape around this stone that's laying up in the water at this point, and the shadow back from there, and just leave that's going to be in the water. There's a little bit of reflection, so we're going to leave a little bit of white paper or stained paper each side of that, so that it looks like there is a bit of water running through there. If you're clever enough to leave that, that's great. And I want to put in some ultramarine blue, just a little touch, just through there. Now I want to lift some of that back off. Come in with my dagger and just gently lift there, like so. Just taking some of that out. Just want a blue influence to that shape, but I don't want it to be as dark as it was looking. So I'm just a little bit of blue influence into there, and that goes off into that water line. And I want to darken down the back end of that to form up a smooth shape there. So not worried if it's not quite the same as the rock we have in the water. Not so bad. That's okay. Let's come back down and let's look at this one. This one that I said should be much further over, but I'm not worried. I don't even think it's a rock. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm going to treat it as a piece of rock that's laying in there. Got a funny sort of almost a man-made shape to it, so I'm suspecting it's something not natural but man-made. But we'll treat it as such and we will give it some form as this builds up. Okay, so I'm going to come in with some umbers now. I'm going to put some burnt sienna into our mix of indigo. I just want to suggest around our blue, in fact I've actually added another rock. And we got an extra rock in the river, who cares, not a problem. And we're going to come in here with some darks. So there's quite a few darks that are rippling down. Now this way you use the edge of the brush on the tip, and it's fairly dry brush, so what's going to happen is it's going to bounce over the top of the paper, which is great. It's just what you're looking for. Have that broken water effect as you come down through and into the background there. It's just, to me, it's quite nice. It works very, very well, like so. And it's just the tip. Now unfortunately, like all brushes, it doesn't like being scraped across paper or any other surface, so eventually doing stuff like this with the tip of your brush, it will slowly corrupt the edge and it will slowly become less and less effective at this job. But while you can, enjoy it and use it in your paintings, and it will reward you. It will give you some lovely marks. Okay, another glug I feel coming on. How long have we been going anyway? Nearly an hour. Oops, better get a lick on. Okay, I'm going to come down this bank now with a bit more dark, and for that I'm going to put some more blues into our edges. But what I want to try and do, if I can, is very carefully leave some lighter areas to suggest bits of negative space. I'm going to come in here and look at those bits of bank that are coming down, and maybe try and create like a little space where you get a simple piece of wood or something sticking through, and just start to see things in there. I hope that's the plan. One through there. Just trying to build it in such a way that it does look convincing. If I go quiet, I'm just concentrating for just a little bit. I'll take that up that bank up in here, a bit more dark. A bit more warm, a bit more red coming into that. And a little bit of warm colour into that muddy area that's hidden. A bit of red, bit of orange. Just bring that down as a bit of reflection through there. Just let that glaze down like so for a moment. We're going to do the same in other places. In fact, what we can do is we can sort of bring that down through here. There's quite a strong accent of colour down through there and here. Be careful, you only want a little bit. You're going to see where it emanates from. A bit more blue. I will strengthen some of these up, but I just want them to appear as though we've got that sort of lovely shape. It starts from this rock back here. I actually have missed by adding another rock in, but not too worried by that. I'll put a light passage through there too. So I'm going to lift some of that back out. Dry brush, dry rag, and go back in on that in a moment. And yeah, one or two areas down through here. Soften some of it so it becomes less of an impact. Soften that up through to there. Manipulate the edges, soften the edges, run other shapes through, so you've got this honey here, and you can put a dark through there now. If you want it a bit warmer, you can actually do that too, just adding a few bits of other colours to break up the lines of those flushes of colour, but you see between the two you start creating this watery effect. That's the aim, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to put another rock in here. I know it's not in the picture itself, but I feel compelled as I've drawn it there to create it. I think I really got mixed up. I think there's one up there at the top, and this blue one should have been here. But hey ho, artistic license. That's what I call it. It's the same one as I got from the post office last week, and I'm sure you can all go to the post office and get your license whenever you wish to. Alright, being silly. Now then, I did have that little shadow under there, so I'm going to bring that down, and I'm just going to drag that away. Okay, being quite careful if I can, and adding some lights up into the top here. There's a lot of light in here which I've got to try and preserve. I did try and put that blue back in as well, so I think what I've got to do is come across with some more reds and umbers. And you see me tapping into the paper like this. All I'm doing is taking off excess paint and water that I don't really need there. So this one should have been further down here. It's creating an eddy that I can't do, but I'm going to use it anyway. I'm going to create the shape of water that's through here like so. Hopefully it's not too much, and hopefully it will still show what I want it to do. Okay, I would like to tap that light through there. Just going to try and work that if I can with a little bit of water. Just try and lift that area there and tap it off if I can, because I want some reflection to build from this area here into there, and then when I put everything else over, it will hopefully stand out. Right, let's just check this chat. No, no more on the chat. Okay. Let us start working on this area in here. And this is where I've really got to be careful. I want to put in some darks. I'm going to come back in with a smaller brush to do some of this. Put that down for a moment. Some nice bluey darks. Lots of ultramarine into that. Let that come through down and around here. Leave some white spaces as our lovely area of water. Lovely top to this piece of rock in here. And start cranking all these shapes in, making them all on the top. And a bit of, there's a lot of warmth in it, sort of running between warm and cool all the way through this. So we've got the edge of the water, which I need to soften. Keith, good evening. Okay, that's cool. Right, let's just come across and into there, and one or two other marks. I'm trying to segregate the shapes of each rock and leave enough of the water on the light above it to happen, and so it becomes watery and convincing. So it might be done, may have to work harder at it. This could be the first sort of area coming away up here with the rocks and the shapes and the darks. We may well have to come back in and do more to it, like so. Okay, this is drying up. Hopefully it's drying up okay. I'm not too sure, but hopefully it is. I'll put a bit of blue in around here, and we've got that lovely little bit of white. So I need to make that dark enough that when I put the gouache on, it's really going to stand out. And it's getting quite complicated in certain ways, so I'm trying to look at it and see where I need things to go, be it stop, start, and all the rest in that area. So there's a light and a dark area to our rock there. Just going to bring that down, bring this into it at the same time. This needs to get a bit darker into this part here. So let's just drop some darks into there so it gets darker as it comes down away from the light. And then up there it sort of just about touches everything. Hopefully that is looking as it should. Now I'm going to come through here with some of these marks. We've got more blue going on, so let's tuck in some cobalt blue this time. Run that through there. Soften off the edge. A lot more needs to come out of that. Let's just soften that through so it works like that. Then it goes around the back of this mark here. I want to soften where it starts, where that water starts. I'm going to soften that through there like that, and off over there as well. Okay. I'm going to come in with some more darks on here while that's just drying up a bit. So let's just put that in. Okay. And I've got to start looking at these again, haven't I? I've got to get some real darks going on into my greenery. So I'm using the phthalo green and the indigo to give me that dark but very cool green colour. So now I'm going to temper those with some orange in there. I'm just going to come in, I'm going to make a real strong green statement here, coming into this water, and let that come down. Now I'm not going to be I'm not doing all these sort of negative space plants fronds over this. I'm just trying to get the weight of this in against this bank here as it comes down there. I'm going to create a little edge to the bank there of mud. Now I think some of these things I've done could have been done maybe a trifle better. It's one of those, you are working away under pressure as it were, and you're trying to create this illusion, and sometimes something just gets a little bit away from you, and I feel that some of this is just starting to do that in one or two places, not everywhere, just in one or two places. I'd like to have seen things a little bit different, but it's the way it is. I just want to give you the experience of yeah, well, basically what I do. So I'm going to come up here with some more lights in this green, darker than I've got here already. So let's just put some of that in. Take some of the shapes. This actually column, this big raft of plant goes all the way out of the picture, so let's make that happen. Let's give that a real big stature, and a lot more blue into places too, because there's a lot of cool in the leaves as it comes down. And I'm just dropping in some beautiful pure blues into that mass. They mix with the reds and the oranges and the greens, and it just looks really wonderful. Thicken up one or two of those and take them off out through there as well. Just give them a nice shape, a nice solid shape going off the edge of this. There's a little bit lacking on this side, so let's build this side up a little bit more. Scratching around and playing with it. I'm not trying to draw in, really I'm not trying to draw individual leaves on this thing. I'm just trying to get it looking like this big mass. Okay, and similarly I need to use some of that and to come in with some reflection now. I want to taper that down. That green I'm going to mix with some Indian red just to make it lose a bit of impact of green, something like that. and it comes down. It would have highlighted that had that been in the right place, but there you go, I didn't put it in the right place, so I can't do that. And what there is also a beautiful flush of blue in there, and I'm going to put that in like so, and I'm going to come back in with this colour all the way into here. So we get the blue and we get a little bit of the dark running, and we need to come back in with a lot more dark colour to make this work. I'm going to come and do that right now and let that flow and let it settle down where it wants to, really, because there's got to be a lot more happening. I quite like the bleed with this. I love the softness that this has just given me, and while I can do that, I'm going to just sort of suggest where these are touching. Just one or two reflections like that into the water coming back. Something like that. I hope that works. I actually quite like the way that this is bleeding through, and I can help that by adding a bit more water and letting that flow a little bit down. Let that just come on down a little bit and do what it wants to do in behind this rock, like that. It's quite interesting. Let that take a few lines through, and as I say, I wish I'd had that rock. I can't keep on about it, but I can't change it. It is what it is. So there you are. I'm going to put in a little lighter value in here, which is this reflection, and I'm going to lift it just a bit. There. That will allow me to put in a bit more of the rock above. I'm going to take this and play with this as this comes down into the edge of the waterfall. It does disappear in the dark. We've got a massive dark coming in here in a minute, so we can lose most of that. But let's just play around with this, taking it all the way down to this point here, where the water is just starting to break off and go over the falls, such as they are. And I'm going to leave, I've lost the top of my stick, so that will have to be put in with some body colour gouache at a later point. So let's bring that through here. And let us bring that through to there. Too much water, tap that back. I'm running out of paper towel fast. And I see a little bit that blew down there, I can use that. Right. Just see where I need to go next. This really wants to come in and bleed and lose itself with a few eddies that are running back over here while this is all still quite wet. And that should have happened with that rock. I keep saying about it, but it's bugged me a little bit that I got it in the wrong place, if I'm honest with you. I'll put a little bit of red and just come over with one or two of these sort of shadowy areas over the back here, and coming down from here. Scratching it is really the best way to describe that. Scratching that as it comes down and just forms up with one or two other areas like so, where you can just bring areas together and you can come into that little eddy, that little shape that I put there. So all of a sudden these whole areas start to create patterns, and areas of water are becoming more believable because of what we're doing now. And it's all a case of like a giant jigsaw, trying to get it all looking about right before you bring it through. There is a flush of light green there. I'm going to see if I can just punch in the minutest little sense of limey green. That is way too strong. I'm using lemon and a bit of phthalo, which is a very, very violent cocktail of colour. But I'm just going to see if it'll allow me just to pop in a few taps of that there to sit there and let it dry up before I come back in. Just picking up some of the light greens in the bank further along. I think we can get away with that, but I'm not going to touch it until it's sorted out and dried up. Okay, Judy, nice to see you. Ah dear, I don't know what's up with your login thing. I really don't. Okay, let's go and carry on. Let's take that out. Don't need that anymore. Let's come back in with our darks. A lovely dark indigo, bit of the orange into that as well. And I'm leaving that. I like that so much. I'm going to leave that. So it's going to come back in with some stronger darks along the bank here. 1 or 2 pops and taps of colour. And let that then come down into that reflection. Tapping it off, making it a little less important as it comes through. And I'll come back up into 1 or 2 of these darks up in the back here. Especially on this rock here, it's got lost. Like so, and I'm going to come in with a smaller brush and just play around with 1 or 2 shapes up on here. Got a bit green. I'm going to come in with some red and some blue just to take that off the green, like so, and suggest other areas up in the back here. A bit more information. Little taps, that's all they are. There's nothing. I'm not going to say, I nearly said set in stone. Well, I did just say set in stone, but you know what I mean. It's not set in stone. I just want to create little marks to suggest all sorts of things going on along that riverbank. Little taps up in there maybe. Bits of flotsam, jetsam, bit of debris, like so, and then I want to come in and suggest those lovely light colours. Now the best way to do that, I think, will be using some raw sienna, tap of Indian yellow, make it quite dirty, then just come in with some of these shapes here and suggest them right up in the top here. They're not going to come and they're not going to amount to very much, but you'll get to see hopefully that they will become something, and they will have a sense of purpose, as it were, and then we can come in with some shadowy areas underneath through here, softly as it comes into that area there. Those reedy bits disappear. And we can play around then with some of these marks that go across in the same way as we did down here. Let's see if we can't suggest a little bit more movement in this water as it's coming down. Because at the end of the day, it is a hill stream. And so far, we get areas of slight water, of course you do. But it's nice to be able to suggest movement in the water. So that's what I'm trying to do here at the moment. Just try and bring some of those areas together. I want to make this a deeper blue than I already have it up into this part of this rock. So let's just make a bit more of this, and then that will work nicely. If I'm very careful, leave that little area of light that suggests the edge of the water breaking away, and that comes down here as well. Now that dried up a bit darker on that light, as I didn't expect that. I was hoping that would dry up a little lighter than that, but I can't do a lot with it except this, which is literally to come in with darker value over the whole of this area, so that then this area becomes lighter by default. A little bit of dark in there, tap a real dark there. Okay. Not sure if that's working quite how I'd love it to work, but at the end of the day, the paint is on, and this is what you've got to be very mindful of. But when you are painting, if you do put marks on there and they're not working, you've got to really plan with watercolour. So many watercolours just splish splash, no planning, and wonder why it goes wrong. You do have to really think about where you want to take it, where you want it to go, and what you want it to do. Yes, you could actually, but the thing is that the thing about acrylics, Carl, over and above watercolour, is you're working in reverse. Here we have to work very, very hard to maintain our lights, because obviously the lightest part of our painting is our paper. If we destroy that, then it's gone. That's it. We can't get it back. We can perhaps get some of it going again with some body colour, but what we can't do is really replenish. When you work in acrylics, of course, you have the ability to go from dark to light, and your final brush marks, as in oil too, are your sort of whites, your light colours. So you have that ability to address the situation in that fashion. I was going to put another rock there, wasn't I? I'm not. Do I? Do I? No, I'm not going to. What I'm going to do instead is bring some of these values in and take that all the way through there, bring that down through there, and so we create another flow of water, and we've lost our stone. Sort of a bit of a calculated decision. I didn't think it was needed, so I chose not to put it in. Okay, I'm going to come in with some more reds. I love Indian red. It's a great red colour, like a very dull sanguine, as it were. One or two of those marks in just as that comes down through. I'm looking at what you're seeing on the painting, and hopefully it's looking okay. Right, but I do need to stop there and let's work on other areas. I love that. It's about the best part of the painting thing right now. Okay, going back in with our darks. Let's get really rich and dark now. Let's come in with the shadow side, and this is the thing that went on. That colour went on there just now. Look how it dried back. And now we're going to put this colour in here, and I'm being a little more sort of really just broad with the marks. I can play around with the edges like this. I can start teasing some of them out a little bit more, like so, but I'm putting the marks very generally in with this big lovely brush, and over the top there, and the way up there it gets very, very big and very, very dark, like that. Now I've got to just soften one or two of these marks. They're very, very hard. I don't want them too hard, so I'm going to soften that by putting a damp brush down and just running it along the edge of the hard mark and just play around with it so it disappears. A little bit like that. Right. A little bit of broken edge to make that sort of break away into the surf, as it were, into the edge of the water. And then I want to come in with some softer colours through here, just to give me a little bit more there. I don't want to get too dark there, that's the thing. I want to keep it quite fresh if I can. Quite happy to let that pick up and run. Not a bad decision. And I've got to hurry up. Just realised how many rocks are still yet to be painted. Let's come in there with a very big dark. That's too green, so let's come in with, again, our favourite colour combo. And let's bring in the side of that rock there. We can tap into some negative spaces like so. Let's bring that down. We need to add the weight into this part of the picture so that it works. I'm trying to do some negative space. I'm going to change the brush and sort of draw into some of this space around into this plant. This brush will not hold that much moisture, so therefore the amount of pigment it will hold is quite short-lived, as it were. It's not going to give you too much of a break on that. Let's just come in here and use some of the space like so. Okay. Just trying to break it up so we've got lights and darks in the greens all the way down to the stones right at the bottom here. And then bring this colour all the way down through here to give me a basis to come back into the blue water. Now that blue water has got to get darker too. So I'm going to use another round brush to work in conjunction with the dark. I want to put in some blue, which is the wrong blue. Let's come out of that one, let's clean that one out. Let's come in with that blue, there you go. And let's just come in here and bring that into that dark and start playing around and leaving some little white spaces if we can. So we start drawing again with paint as we were doing before. I've got a rock there, it seems, which I can see which one it is. So we're going to come back this side and play with the lovely blue colours and into that water. Now I'm being careful as I can. I'm not going to get every little bit right, but hopefully we get something that looks about right. I'm using negative space or trying to leave areas of the water. Now this is rushing over at this point, so I'm going to suggest that with lovely flowy marks like this. So we're suggesting that, and then that will come into this bottom pool or the next stage of its journey down the hill. And I'm going to work on that in a minute. That was a nice touch to leave that as it was, so we can build on that. I'm going to come across further. There's a lot more white water there, so I'm going to leave that. And a little bit of a dark area up into there. Like so. We can join the two areas with some more darks, that's not a problem. And coming up underneath this area here, this broken branch, I'm going to let some blue in there, but let it do what it wants to do, and it bubbles up down. There's a couple of rocks in here that I've absolutely missed, I think, but I'm going to play around with the idea, bubble this around a bit and let it come around. I just want to leave some more whitish water, as it were. Let that come trickling down through there and across there where it's going to get darker underneath, not a problem. So hopefully that will give us enough white water. If it doesn't, we'll have to go back in with something just to tweak that a little bit more, but I think hopefully we may have enough to do the job. I don't know, we'll see. Alright, so there is a little bit of light and dark running through here with a little blue flush. So I'm going to put that on, just let that dry off and leave it there. I'm getting contamination from the towel. I'll make this last little bit of towel last a very long time. There's very little left. Okay, that's crazy. Alright, now let me just get in the warmth on the edge of this stick. So let's just put that in like so. Quite heavy colour, not a lot of water, but let's just put that in, take that down through there and into that part of the rock. And we'll leave it at that for the moment, let that dry. We won't try and do any more to that. I've got to put some gouache on here. I know I've got to change that at some point later on. And I want to touch a little bit of that into there, and a little bit into some of these rock faces. Now let's just warm some of these up before we continue. And this one down here too. It's warming up, ready to set it up and cool it down later. I feel that I could have made everything darker ahead of time, but I'm going to have to work on that a little bit more, like that. And this other rock in here is quite dark, so let's just chance now how dry is that blue. I think I can get away with some of it, but I'm not going to get too close to some. I'm just going to leave it like that. I think just bring it down to there, and we'll come back into that later on. I just want to know that that's what I'm going to do, and we're in the right direction, as it were. That's going to be a warmer through there. This too is going to be a bit warmer up here. There's a bit too much red going on. Let's come back, change that from red to a bluer colour. Like so. And that comes out as a big lump into the water there, creating a diversion for this one. In fact, it actually comes all the way down through here, like so. It's quite a large rock. I want to lose some of that, and I want to replace that with some cobalt into there, neat cobalt, straight into the top of that. Let that settle down, and that will give us that lovely little blue light on the top of that rock, and we can then go back into that, and I think that has to come across like so. Let's get the drawing a little bit better at this point. And we can come back in down here, which is very much darker, a little light rocks, so we can start drawing in some of these little spaces to leave for the rocks, like that. So we're working negatively around them once more. I want to put some reds into our other colours and just play around with some of these lights and darks that are running through here right now. So lights and darks into there, and we're suggesting sort of shapes that are on the pebbly edge of the mud as this is going down. I'm sure I'm not going to capture every stone. I'm not really trying to. I'm not really bothered about doing that. In fact, I'm going to sort of virtually wipe them all out. Did anybody get some good views of the comet as it was going through our system? Well, not through our system as such, but certainly visible to us all. Did anyone get to see any good ones? We kept getting, they're quite blurry. We got, I was using a scope on it, and yeah, to a greater degree, we got some lovely, say we saw it sort of thing, but hopefully people got, I saw every photograph I saw of it was wonderful photographs. I'm thinking, well, how the heck did they get such lovely pictures of this lovely comet? But they did, and I'm glad they did. Just wish I managed to get a couple or see it a bit easier than we did. Maybe we looked at the wrong time of the night. Maybe we should have waited and got up like everybody else in the wee hours of the morning. Unfortunately, I couldn't do that. Once I'm asleep, hopefully I'll stay asleep. Not always, but sometimes I get woken up, but there we go. Alright, and just take that dark off into that side there. And this is the whole of this. It's amazing how complicated this painting has become, trying to get all these shapes to work and yeah, to form what we need. I come in here. I saw, where are we? Carl, yes, my gallery is open now. It's one of those. We are using face masks to come in, and hand washes when you come in. But yeah, the gallery is open, and people are very, very welcome. Bring that through there like so. Just tap off a couple of bits through the base here. that all comes milling together and blends and moves on like that. I hope that's got that and caught that. So bring that round the bottom of the edge of this stone here, like so. A little bit of flush of dark and light coming around the edge, touching into wet areas like that really does or can work for you. A little bit of red in there, it's a bit too much. Just see what that does. So I'm going to bring a shadow across in a moment. So I'm playing around with sort of warms and cools basically, like so. I guess they're stones that we can see in the light on the bottom of the riverbed or the stream bed. So I'm just going to put those in, and then I'm going to come in with some of the darker blue values as we move forward. Not too dark though. Bridget, good evening to you. Yes, I as I say, that comment was, it was nice. You could see the cloud out through the back of it, but you really, the head was sort of quite muffly. I suppose it's got to be, because if it's steaming away from us at a great rate, then of course the head is going to have the cloud behind it, and therefore you're not going to see too much. It makes more sense, doesn't it? So anyway, there you go. A little diversion while I try and paint this bubbly water coming down. Trying to keep as much clarity between bits as I can, but I can't for the life of me. My mind is not ordered enough to manage to keep all of those areas sort of succinctly different between the warms and the cools. So you're going to have to forgive me on that. It's not going to happen quite like that. I'm going to bring that through like so. Bring that off into this other rock. I'm going to bring that quite dark around there so we can isolate this rock and make it stronger, and dark underneath there where it's under the water. You can see the rock going under the water. You can actually see where it's wet at this point. Okay, a little bit of the light into there too. Okay, where are we? I'm getting lost with all my stone. There's a lot of darks under here I hadn't even begun to talk about doing. So let's try and bring that in there. And let's try and bring the dark underneath that bow that's got stuck. And there's a little bit of water, I think, coming and cascading down and around. Probably haven't got that in the right place at all. So I can just create as best I can dark that's running through there. A bit more blue. And it sort of comes down there and then around the back. So let's just take and taper that out, and then that goes on up there. I'm still trying to form that shape, still trying to form the lights and the darks that create that wonderful little dip into the way the water's crashing down. I must admit, I'm actually using a lot more bleeds, a lot more watery effects to achieve what I'm looking to do. So hopefully it's coming, it works. You can see I'm adding values all the time to those that have already been put in and adding more to them. It's a little, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's all about a little trial and error, isn't it? It's all about having a go. And if it doesn't work out first time, what's the problem? Just have another go. Nothing ever works first time sometimes, and you just got to keep at it. So hopefully that's what you would do. Like that. It's a little bit of a strong statement. I've literally run out of paper. How crazy is that? Would all of you excuse me for about 2 seconds while I just dive and still the one in the kitchen? I do need some more to continue this. Bear with me, I'll be straight back. Sorry about the intermission there. Alright. Let's get this going. Just nick the supply from the kitchen, but I am pretty desperate for some roll. Hopefully that will get us through to the end of this. Right, continuing on. My painting, my watercolour paint, water, cleansing water is going to have to be changed too very, very shortly, I think. So I'm going to tap in 1 or 2 extra darks, 1 or 2 places. I quite like what this is doing through here. It's working very, very well actually. I just want to tap in a bit of difference between one rock and another one just here, just an extra layer of dark just to segregate the two, and let that carry on up. Yeah, like so. And it's all about just taking a look back, a step back, and just checking where things need to be altered, what you need to do to move forward, and that is the key. Just stopping and checking. I come up here with the edge of that piece of stuff, that rock. Did I see Teresa joined us? Okay, good to see you here, Teresa. Well into probably messing this up the way I'm going. Oh dear. Nah, it's good. Okay, we're doing alright. Just lots more into this. I really didn't look, when I looked at this image to do it tonight, I thought that'd be really nice. I didn't think I'd have such a struggle to get so many of these different forms happening. We're getting there, but it could have been a lot easier journey. I'm just going to put 1 or 2 darks through there. Just tapping some of those into to suggest where the water's coming in and flushing through, as it were. I'm not quite sure. It's like a little eddy coming down through here. Goes into a bit more blue through the back there. not quite the way I'd like it. I've got a bit of light missing there and I can't achieve that. Okay, so I've lost a lot of definition in these rocks as well, and I'm going to see if I can ease a bit of that off. Now this is always a bit of a tricky job to do, but sometimes you can get away with a stiffer brush and just gently draw into the thing. If you're careful, dampen the brush and just gently add water, and you can see that there are lines now appearing, but they're not going to get too much better, and you do run the risk of cauliflowers if you're not careful. Best way to tackle this would be to have a good piece of kitchen roll at the ready to go back in and lift off any moisture that happens to be there, because it will try and push the pigment, because it's dry but it's not absolutely dry. Try a little bit of an edge around there too. Okay, now I'm going to come out and radiate out from under here, and there's this shadow in this rock here. I'm going to try and bring that out, and there's little sort of fingery shapes in the water, and they cascade across over to here, and the ripples. Soften one or two, made to make every one of them harsh if you can help it. Make a lot more blue statement as well coming out of this. There's there's an awful lot of, oh there's one, that's a brush I've been looking for. There you go. Right, now I found the brush I have been looking for. Let's just come across here with some of these ripples but shadows across the water. I don't know, I guess they must be the overhanging trees that are causing them. But it's nice to have them because they're a nice statement that you can add to the whole image. Make them a little fainter and a little broader as they go away. Right. Take that up into there. Make some of that drying up. A lot more of a bigger statement of it down through here. So let's make that happen in here, underneath this rock. As I said, that was that shadowy area of it underwater, but you can see how the two areas become very pale comparison. So it gives you the chance, if you're not quite right the first time, to go back in and have another crack at that. So I'm quite happy at that. That's a little better than it was, and it works. Take that all the way off. There's another rock or two here. I'll maybe leave some room to put those in. And leave it like that. I'm going to come back into where we do another bit of dark around in here on this rock. Going with a smaller brush and just tap in a few areas where it's wet, damp, or it's just taken away from the edge of that water there. And you see what I'm doing is some of it is dry brush and some of it is wet. Some I go sort of tip tap, then I get it and splodge it down with my hand and make it a much bigger statement than it was. And darks in here because that area is quite dark there. And the darker we make, I don't say just go and make it all dark, black or whatever, but the darker the values we make, then the more convincing we can show the lights. And that's quite important. Because to make things, I keep saying it, to make things lighter, make everything around it much darker, and vice versa. A little bit of red, a little bit of warms coming into some of these mixes here in the shade. With a blue into some of those as well, just to cool them down just a bit. And these have got a lot of shadows that are running through and out into the water. So I'm trying to see if I can get those. Right, so a nice directional line too, which is quite good. A stone, one or two from the back here, radiating out. Becomes quite an assortment of shapes and forms. It's quite bewildering from where I am. Okay, Lucy, well thank you for joining us. Hopefully you'll join us again, maybe on Monday for an oil, or next Friday. It'd be good, and thank you very much for coming along tonight. Right, I'm just going to wash a few more darks into here. To mix it up a little bit, darks and lights, warms and cools, enough to make the whole area convincing that there's a rush of water coming on down through the hill. Quick taps here, quick taps there. Try and keep them as random as you can possibly make them. Like so. Now we've got to address these areas up in here much darker than they are. So let's come back in, let's put some more blue, get it ready. A little bit of red. Not too much red. Let's just see where we can make this happen. So it's quite violety, but I'm not too worried. I'm going to put a little bit of Indian red and some more blue to that, just to take it off the pure violet. And let's just come in here with a smaller brush and see how we can't play around with some of these shapes in here to suggest the water is coming down. A bit more water. See, my drawing here is not quite right, but I'm trying to make the dots all connect up and make it work so that it becomes a believable passage of painting. Up into there. And that comes down in front of this one, and then down on through into these areas here. Like so. Can't quite see what you're seeing, but hopefully that's working. And I'm going to bring some darks into through here just to make the white stand out even more, or the pale blues if that's all that I've got left. I'm trying to look at creating the sort of foamier patterns that we've got going on in there. The little eddies and little shapes as it comes down to that little bit of waterfall. And that's got to get a serious bit darker in there. And then I've got it, and that's too red. So let's come back in. Let's play around with that. Some indigo, a bit of orange. Just come back in and make that marry it up. A bit more clear. Just going to tap that away. Okay. Make a nice dark statement in here. Like that. I hope I've got it right. Keep looking at it and keep changing things, keep adding things. You can see how you can really put dark on, and then 2 seconds later it's just cooled off and dried off and gone quite pale. And that really is how it works. You know, watercolour will just dry up very, very pale on you each and every time. And you know, it's a very bold person that goes straight in with a strength of colour value right at the word go. It's not easy done and can easily go wrong. Just a word of caution with doing that. It's best sometimes to build up in layers and yeah, so that you stop when you feel you've got enough. Right, where are we? I think a drink is necessary. I hope I haven't missed too much on the chat. If I have, I apologise to you. And let's get in with some darks on these under here. So I need to make that quite dark under there to show up that nice branch. Let that come down to the edge of that rock there. Isolate that and throw that out. Take it right into there, I think, like that. And that throws, that was dark, but now how light that's become. But I assure you, in a few moments, this too will become lighter, and you'll wonder where all this colour keeps drying out to. But that is the nature. And I'm going to come under there and isolate that piece of timber and down through here like that, and let that go into taps and away to nothing there. As I say, my little waterfall stream is changing and it's altering all the time, but I'm not overly concerned. There are, as I said to you right way back, that there are 1 or 2 places I wish I could change. I can't change them because I made not mistakes, but I didn't observe things quite how they could have been done, and because of that I missed out on slight opportunities. Just going to bring that through there. Oh, very strong. Don't know if I really wanted that because I picked up a little bit of yellow. Let's come back in with some blue, a bit of red. Take that into the rock. Take that all the way to the edge. I know there's a bit of a grassy bank there, so let's just take some of that out, that colour. Gives us a chance to put that in. That's okay. I'm going to let some of that come down through and just pop away and drain itself away into the water as it comes down and into this area again. Alright, I lifted that up and I really would love to put some more darks in, so I think I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to make a few of these shapes a little bit stronger and give them a bit more form. Like so. Okay, and leave it at that. Now then, where are we? I am seriously looking around for, oh my lord, we're 2 hours gone. Please forgive me everybody, I had no idea how fast this had gone away from me in time. So I am so far from finished, but it's one of those. It may be that we have to just leave it there, and it may or may not get finished tonight or any other day. It's just one of those. Try to work this in negative space. And try and have that sort of touch and play around with the other parts. And then come in with a few darks in here. Maybe a bit more blue in that would be good too. A little bit of ultramarine blue went into that just to give these a cool side to these leaves. I'll leave them at that. I can't really do too much more to them at this point. And I'm really sort of looking around at where I want to put other things. I'm going to come in with that sword liner, and I'm going to, no I'm not, I'm going to come in with some dark deep green colour, which I was using just then I think. Let's come in with some more of that. Let's just put in, up through here, some of these branches or leaves, shall I say, to these prickly blackcurrant bushes, and they will work nicely over the river or over the stream, shall I say, and then they will sort of become quite solid and silhouette themselves as they come closer together down here, and then more and more light is taken away from them. They come into this area down and then just really disappear. There's a lot of the light colours of here, but it needs an awful lot of work in terms of negative space painting to get those in that fashion. Or you could have gone through with a masking of some sort before you started to isolate and draw in and scratched in, but I'm not really too bothered at that. I'm just going to bring some light into them and just do this, which is very suggestive of reeds and grasses that are growing in the space, and some of that other colour is going to bleed into the area, and then that will be fine. I can put a little touch of green in the very base, which is very suggested, like so, and that works. No, actually, watercolours are my second, or even possibly my third. I love watercolour, and I enjoy every aspect of watercolour, I've got to say. But at the same time, my favourite is oil. Oil is always been my preferred medium. Just going to lift some of this rock out. It's got a little bit too warm. Just going to lift some out and some over here against that lighter area, that darker area, sorry. Add some more pigments to it. I just wanted to suggest that. Then I'm going to go round the dark again in a little bit and add more to that too. So there's a lot of cool colours going on that I've not done, and I just want to put one or two areas in there, quite watery. Little tints, little washes over the top of what's already there and already dry. And take that right up to the edge of this stone and around it, like that. Okay, soften one or two, as I always do, and let them run away. And just let that dry off. And this whole thing now is a case of just keep doing and looking. Little touches, little darks in here, building up the values. The blues, the darks, the heavier colours, really strong darks in certain places. You want to put them in, they really do work. They just give an extra dimension. But the more dark you put one area, of course, you're going to end up needing to tweak another area, and this is always the care that you have to take. It can go against you. Okay, I'm looking at it. I think we're pretty much making it look like a stream now. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Brownie. I really do. There's a lot to be said for that, but watercolour has just got something about it too. I don't know. It keeps pulling me back in. I am an oil man through and through. Don't get me wrong. But watercolours, there's just something about the medium that keeps dragging me back in to have another crack at it and taking it on again. I'm just putting a few looser marks into this dark around this stone. See how that bled back into there where I lifted it up. I want to put a bit of red, a little bit of that, and just come in with a few. You could use that sword liner for this quite easily, very, very easy to use. I just wanted to have what was in my hand, like so. And one or two other marks up through here, just to finish off. Little branches, little this and that, broken stems up in there, and then we can put, I mean, we could have done an awful lot more of that in here if we really tried, but I'm just going to not do too much, just make it a little more suggestive. And I'm going to put a bit of white gouache in a minute, if you can bear with me. A few darks, a few bits and pieces. I brought some of those plants down, some of those leafy things that we've been putting in, so I'm going to put one or two in here. As that goes on to the bottom, just change what we see there. I'm not going to put any rocks in the bottom here. I haven't really got the time for doing that. Just keep refining what I'm seeing at the moment, and it's quite a almost a never-ending job. It's like the fourth bridge. Just keep at it, keep adding more bits and pieces, more beautiful colours, more subtle tints of one thing over another. But hopefully I've allowed you to have a glimpse at how I try and tackle this subject. It's not for the faint-hearted, and I've got to say, out of all the watercolours that I've done for you guys over the weeks now, that this is probably has to be one of the most difficult that I've done because of the amount of elements in here. It's just almost unending. Okay, I'm going to stop that part there. I'm going to find the gouache. And I've got some in here. There we are. And I'm just going to do 1 or 2 highlights, and then if people are fed up with watching, then you can make a quick exit and disappear. I'm just actually mixing some of that gouache with some of the blue. I just want to play around with some of these if I can. Not sure I can, but I just want to play around with 1 or 2 little taps. I'm never a big fan of this. I like to use it as pure highlight, but I'm not a big fan of trying to put in so much that I didn't manage to leave with the white paper. I'm going to put in 1 or 2 areas of light there, and there's a little bit of light along the top of that log. It's so chalky, and I think that is what I don't like about it. Makes everything opaque and sort of quite milky looking. But I think we got away with it. Okay, well, I'll keep going. I'm quite happy about painting. I don't know how far we'll get towards the end, but what I will do is take it a lot closer. So I'm going to take some of that gouache, tap it out into the pan, get rid of most of it. I just want to cool this off. This rock, I wish I'd done a little bit on the cooler side. So I'm going to put some body colour to it. And I could completely wish I hadn't touched it, but we're going to see what happens by doing that. A little bit on there too, just to cool it off. Okay, see how that dries up and we can play around with it. So it's just never as strong. You can see this white, I know I tapped it off, I know I did that, but you can see this white going in. Never as white as that, is it? Never going to be as white as the white paper, and that's why I always prefer leaving white paper to adding gouache or body colour further on. Just never as appealing, never as satisfying to do that. But hey, it's what it is, and it's all from the planning, and that's the situation. Plan better, and you'll have less problems working on. Where are we? No, I don't think it's a repair medium, Keith. I think it is a great way to replace highlights that are lost. So if you're going to look at it in that way, then maybe it is more of a repair. I sort of like to think that I can use it because it's there and it will serve a purpose, but at the same time it shouldn't become an over-reliance upon it. Titanium white, well, titanium white, I mean the white gouache is a permanent white. Titanium white is pretty much the same sort of thing. You can use acrylics to do a very similar job. There's nothing wrong with that either. And I do believe Wendy, if you're still watching, I'm sure she's still watching, she found something on one of the channels, I think it's on eBay, that purports to be an excellent whiter than gouache can make things. So it may be that it's worth investigating that, and I'll have a word with her, and I'll put the details or a link to that somewhere in the description of the video when this goes live on air, as it were, tomorrow. So it might be something that I'm certainly going to get some and give it a try. I think it's about £10 a tub, and I think for the money it's worth having a go. Just putting one or two bits in here to suggest a bit of rushing water, a little bit under there that's suggesting some running water. I'm not a great lover of gouache itself, gotta say. You want to, you know, one of the biggest things for this gouache is what I'm trying to demonstrate right here, because you put it on too thin to get it moving, and it just disappears into the paint. You put it on too thick, and it just skates across the surface and doesn't help you at all. So I'm sort of, you're trying to constantly find the happy medium between the two. Right. Okay, well there's a good recommendation. Can you just type in, Wendy, what that is so that we can all maybe get to use it? And if you don't mind, that'd be great. Okay, I'm going to add a bit more detail to that top of that branch. And a little bit of highlight down its length. And while I'm doing it, I may as well put some paler gouache, pale greeny colours that are sort of coming out from here, or the odd little bit in the water like so. It gives us a nice little reflection and a little anchor point in terms of what's going on with the surroundings. One or two other bits, maybe another one up there, and that sort of comes like that. One or two other bits further up the bank if you want to, just to suggest little bits of information. They just give a little bit of indication that there's something up there. Maybe one sticking in the water like so. A little reflection for it. Little bits and pieces that just help suggest what's going on. Like that. Just tap it away. Don't make it too significant. Just helps, I think. Add something to it, certainly. Yeah, absolutely, Bridget. It's so the best if you can make it happen that way. But unfortunately, just sometimes you just can't, and you've got to go back in. A lot of the Americans, they are very happy to use gouache and create extra highlights and sort of make the painting work a little bit better for them. So I come in with a bit of blue around here. Now the Victorians, of course, they used body colour to great degrees of skill, and you know, most of their paintings were done in watercolours as body colour. The modern theory between some of that is quite literally modern theory. You know, people used body colour. Now then, just checking over quickly. Feel that there's just so many areas to play around with. I want to put a bit more depth down through here, I think. I'm going to put a little bit more broken brush mark just to scratch it in. It might take it. I hope it will. Taking it out from under there as well, that's quite useful. I'm using up just some odd bits of paint that I've got kicking around on the palette right now. I'm layering over many of the values that I've already put on. Just gently scratching over. It's depositing colours in some places and not in others. Makes the whole thing quite interesting because it's just a play around with the sort of almost scribbling. If it were pencil, I would be scribbling. It just adds another little dimension to the water. Certainly needed something as the water was going backward up the river stream, up the stream, and I just felt that I needed to add a little bit more depth to some of it. And then all of a sudden you do one bit too much and you've lost it. So I've got to be a bit careful. Oh, where did that come from? Get rid of that. That's the trouble with gouache. You forget you got it in a pan and you pick some up and you don't want it there. Get rid of that. Right. Let's come back with that colour. Let's just scratch it over and carry that idea on a little bit more. Hopefully this is working. I've gone quiet because, in all honesty, I'm getting a little tired. Gotta be said. I'll not tell a lie. I'm sort of concentrating more and going a bit quieter, so I'm not talking all the time. So forgive me for that. Or you may be quite grateful. I don't know. There are one or two little eddies coming right the way down to that area there. Well, it's not a perfect stream, is it? But hopefully you've got enough from it to have enjoyed it, and maybe if it's something on a subject matter that you fancy having a go yourself, then give it a go, have a try. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, as always, and by having a go, if you succeed, then you're going to be darn happy you did, and if you don't, then you'll never know what you were capable of. So it's always worth trying these things out, trying new things out, trying out your watercolours. If you haven't put them out for a long time, get them out and have a go. You've got great weather for it right now, so why not? But I think we've pretty much beaten the heck out of this one. It's worked in some places. It hasn't worked in others, I've got to admit. But overall, it's okay. Just going a bit more blues and colours down through here. Yeah, it's, as I say, it's not so bad. It's just there are places that I know I wish I'd done maybe subtly a little differently, but I won't beat myself up over that any further. Quite like this as well, I've got to say. I quite like this sort of layering of values of warms and cools in different tones as well of the same colours. It does have a lovely sort of blotchy effect to it. It gives a bit of weight to the foreground too, that's the other thing. These deeper colours just add a little bit of weight coming down to the bottom of the picture. And yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to probably sign the painting on one side. Maybe here. There you go. Let that dry for a minute and then I'll pull off the pull off most of this in a minute or two. But yeah, there you are. I have enjoyed this. Katriana, so you've missed most of it. Well, hopefully you will be able to go back in tomorrow and catch up the bits that you've missed. As I say, it's not the perfect hill stream. I wanted to achieve one or two other effects in there, but it is what it is, and it's not a complete bad painting as such, but I just feel that one or two things work better than others. So with that in mind, let's pull off the thingy. So sometimes, you know, you do something, and I think that's where oil paints or acrylics will always score over watercolour, is that, you know, you can keep working on those guys and you will have a great result if you persevere, because you can keep playing around. But with watercolour, all you end up is a dirty mess on your painting or on your paper, and you don't really want that. Let's take that piece off. Right, yes, okay Judy, I've been a bit negative about it, haven't I? Well, you know, I just know what I want when I set out, and this is all of us. We all know what we like to achieve when we set out to paint something, and you know, it sometimes it happens perfectly, other times it's just a bit of a struggle to get there, and sometimes of course we know it doesn't happen at all. But I think it's not. Let's just straighten that up. I'm not too unhappy with that. It, you know, as I said earlier, it could have been a bit different in places, but I'm not too much of a problem. But yeah, it's a bit of fun. It's a hill stream, and I think we achieved what I set out to achieve. Albeit we are now 2.5 hours into a stream. Good heavens, I didn't realise it had gone on that long. I am so sorry. Thank you, Bramley. And don't forget, guys, there is where are we on? The watercolour went up today, which was another people one. So take a look at that and enjoy that one, and put your comments on it and like it and subscribe to my channel if you're not a subscriber already. And don't forget that, of course, there is my Patreon channel if you want a lot more from me, and a lot more tutorials, more videos, etc. All this stuff. Plus there is the Facebook community that is set up for all the patrons. So have a look at that. It can cost you as little as 1 cup of coffee a month to get involved. And you know that if by doing that, you are actually supporting my cause. You're actually supporting and helping me to keep my channel running, for you, the patron, as it were, and also for YouTube. It helps with the time, the effort, the filming, the editing, all the tech that goes into all of this that is constantly being looked at and improved as money or whatever allows. So have a look at Patreon, and if you want to get involved with that, you'll be so welcome to do so. And in the meantime, yes, thank you, Michael. And in the meantime, don't forget that on Monday there will be an oil. I won't do this one in oil straight away, but I will probably do a Thames barge in oil. I wanted to do one under full sail, and so if you can bear with that one, I'll pick one out and I'll do a nice Thames barge somewhere off the Swale and get involved with that in oil, and we'll maybe revisit this subject in oil in a few weeks time and see how we go, see what you guys want to do. I'm always happy to do that. So yeah, James, thank you very much. Just saw your comment. Jim, thank you very much. I'm glad you've enjoyed it, everybody. Yeah, I don't always win that battle, Ben. Coax them into doing what I want. I wish I could. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and I win more than I lose. But that's the thing. Yeah, I thought I'd get a plus up sign from you, James, on the Thames barge. I really love them, and I just fancy painting another one in oil. And let's just see how we get on with that. And I might make it a 12-16. I'm setting myself up for a big fall. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to turn around and say, I wish I'd have said that. But 12-16, probably make it a nice, big, punchy picture of a Thames sailing barge in a race. So that'd be good. Judy, goodbye to you. Thank you very much, everybody who has been here tonight, who has come on and to support me. Thank you very, very much, and I appreciate it so much from you all. You put up with my rambling and and all these things every week or twice a week, and it's so appreciated. Thank you so much. Goodbye, Bridget. Thank you for joining us. And I do believe that Jean was here. Jean, are you still watching? Or have we lost you? Derek, good evening to you. See you on Monday. Just seeing. Mark, good night, mate. Take care. Thank you for watching. Okay, so I'm just going to wind down. I've earned my beer for the night, I think. So I'm going to go and have a nice pint of Guinness and sit with my feet up and watch some telly. What's left of the evening. Katriana, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry you lost a little bit in the middle there, but hopefully you can catch up, and hopefully we'll catch you again next on Monday for an oil. That'll be fantastic to have your company then. Keith, nice to talk to you again. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. See you on Monday. And hopefully you can join us on Monday. Ben, good evening to you, mate. All the best, everybody. So I'm going to wind this chat down now. Good night, Bramley. Thank you very much for coming along. Jim, are you still there from America? Or have you gone, mate? But thank you for joining us. If you're still there, appreciated. Yeah, I'll see you, Wendy, on Monday. That'll be fantastic. I can't speak French, so I can't even get involved with that conversation, Ben. Catch me on Sunday. What do you... catch me Sunday. Have I forgotten something on Sunday? Oh, yes, of course. Stupid am I. Of course, yes, I will be putting out my Sandling Junction video on Sunday. I've just got to finish a few bits off. Well, actually, I'm gonna tell a bit of a lie if I say that this video, for those a little bit still wear it and interested. This video was actually filmed by my son Barnaby, who is a budding filmmaker and photographer, and he filmed it as part of kicking my backside, as it were, into the 21st century with how I present my videos and how I do things. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's not very long. It's only about 10 minutes or so, if that. So it'll be a short one, but hopefully you'll enjoy it and give it a thumbs up and all the rest of it. Mark your comments down. But it's going to be, it's a bit different. That's all I can say. But hopefully, but I have done nothing to it other than I was the stand-up guy, the fall guy, and the guy that was filmed. The rest of it my son did. So credit to him. He did a cracking job, and he would love to get more involved with doing some videos with me in the future. Unfortunately, I can't pay him, and he has got to live. So it's going to be one of those as and when he can afford the time. Anyway, enough of that. Time is cracking on. Very close now to 2 3/4 hours. So I'm going to turn this chat off after a couple of minutes and say cheerio to you all. Thank you very, very much again. It's much appreciated seeing your company, having your company here, putting up with me painting and jabbering away. All the best, everybody. Till Monday, take care, stay safe, have a great weekend. Talk to you all very, very soon, I know. Bye. Good night, Carl. Good night, Jim.